Welcome to Rainbow Soul Podcast, where our Soulstrology comes forward to help you manage your everyday life, with forecasts and deep dives on natal charts and queer perspectives on the planets, transits, and more. A group discussion about upcoming transits with tips on how to read these transits in your own chart. Hollis offers years of wisdom and natal chart knowledge with Bright Hawk's positive perspective and Lacrosse's inquiry. We offer the complete queer astrology experience. Welcome to Rainbow Soul. Please help us by subscribing, sharing, and commenting and reviewing. You can also learn where else Rainbow Soul is offered on our website at rainbowsoul.show.
Welcome to Rainbow Soul. This is Hollis Taylor, and I'm one of the astrologers here at Rainbow Soul. And you can find out more about me at my website, and you could just visit the link down below in the description.
Hi there, I'm Bright Hawk. You can learn more about me at brighthawkproductions.com in the link below. I'm a musician, the author of the book The Dancing Hippo, which is a gender-neutral book. It's about empowerment, about a hippo that dances with the moon. It's really fun. And our friend.
And I'm Lacrosse Ortiz. I'm back. It's like every other couple of weeks I'm missing, back from South Carolina. You can find me on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. I have the books this time.
Hey,
Color
good.
Journal and the Fool's Journey and the Wands. Color Journal. Basically, you can color and learn tarot as you go along and meditate on the keywords and journal. So, and you can find the link in the subscription. Link in the description. But yeah, subscribe too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think that's a great way to learn tarot. So if you're looking to learn tarot, it's a great way to jump in. And if you know Rider-Waite, let me just say, if you get to know Rider-Waite, you'll be able to use just about any tarot. It's sort of just like the foundation of tarot.
All worlds open.
Yeah,
that's great.
I think it was like 100 years ago that Rider-Waite was invented.
Yeah, it's been over.
And I think that's why that it's not like copyrighted or whatever. And so it was about 100 years ago or so after the last pandemic, during the Renaissance. When it became very popular after the Spanish flu thingy, then they started to use the more Rider-Waite instead. I think it was actually there before, but it got popular then. And so, and then people started to really use Rider-Waite, and everyone was using it. And now almost every deck I have is based on Rider-Waite.
Yeah.
So... All right, my friends. So I'm going to invite you to take a deep breath, center in your body. And just feel your feet on the floor, your bottom in the chair. And just relax to the best as you can, considering your circumstances in the moment. And as you take a deep breath and relax, take yourself for a short walk outside underneath the night sky. And imagine the beautiful stars above you, shining bright, overwhelming at first. Just stars everywhere. as you look around, you start to notice the constellations. And you notice the constellation of Leo. And as Leo starts to shine in the sky, it beams brighter down upon you, shining brightly in your mind, showing the symbol, kind of looks like a horseshoe, bright, bright red. A little horseshoe with a little hook on the side of it. And as Leo shines bright, you notice a lion's head coming right from the center towards you. And Leo imprints a noble, fiery, strong energy on your soul. Pushing you forward to lead, to step forward.
Looks like we froze.
And Leo holds you in perfect, fiery, noble energy, allowing you to step forward as a noble, strong leader. Standing in the position that leads you to passionate, fiery actions and leading forward with the sun. As we allow Leo to engulf us in that beautiful, fiery, passionate energy, we feel empowered. Empowerment pushes us forward. Leo backs back into the sky. The lion retreats into the symbol. And the symbol retreats back into the sky. And we back up into our bodies in the center, in the here and now. Feeling our heart filled with beautiful, fiery passion. Coming back into our bodies, feeling our bottoms on the seat, our feet on floor and our backs in the chair. Stretch our hands and come back into the here and now. Thank you, Bright Hawk.
Well, I'm having a little of a dilemma here because you are stuck.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah.
So I think maybe wave your hands around. I'm waving my hands, but I don't think it would do any good. And maybe stop the recording and I'll leave the space and come back in.
Okay.
All right. Well, I just thought we've done a lot of meditations with planets and everything like that. So I thought it would be great to also explore some of the zodiac because for sure, right now, there's a party going on in Leo. Some pretty intense energies going on if you haven't noticed. The romantic energy is sort of out of this world. Lacrosse, how was your Pride? Like when you went to Pride, was like, did you start like I could see people falling in love. Was that happening around you?
Oh, there was a lot going on at Pride. So, yeah, I mean, it wasn't just like, I think only romantic love. I think there was such a lot of, like self-love, like love with other people. So I saw a lot of camaraderie. I saw a lot of, I don't know, just it wasn't as intense as other prides in the sense it wasn't like, all aggressive. It was actually pretty mellow, cool. Now the nighttime, then I started seeing a lot of romantic love, but
Oh, okay.
at the day, but during the day, not so much. But at night, oh yeah, I saw a lot of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't
So
know why. It might be because we're near the college. We get a lot of younger people that are in college, and they'll be walking by holding hands. And I did a lot of I do psychic readings at Pride. I don't know how many couples came in to see me. It felt like one couple after another, and I was like, okay, which is fine. But it was just like I was like, and then I was at the market, and people were like flirting with each other, and I'm like, Venus is definitely in Leo for sure right now because it's just everywhere I turn, somebody is trying to flirt with somebody else, and good grief.
Yeah, no, I definitely saw a lot of that at nighttime. I guess during the day it wasn't so much because there were a lot of kids there, a lot of children and a lot of families mostly.
And
But at
there's a
night,
lot of that in Central PA anyway.
yeah. But then the after party, oh yeah, no holds barred. Everybody was loving everybody. So.
Right. That's a beautiful thing. I like to see young love anyway, so I appreciate love.
Well, and I saw a lot of gratitude just to be able to get together again. There's still a lot of wow, it's amazing to be together again. There's still a lot of that for sure. And yeah, so we have a Pride on Friday evening that we're going to be doing a booth out again in
Longmont, Colorado.
And yeah, it should be fun.
Yeah, so Longmont is it's a little bit smaller Pride, but it's supposed to be for the evening. So like I think it starts around 1 or something and goes to like 8. So it should be a fun Pride. I've never been to Longmont Pride, so this will be our first time.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're gonna get into this week's forecast. I don't like to use the word prediction. Why? Because I'm not really predicting as much as I'm trying to give you the vibrations. It's more like a weather forecast. So, although, what's her name? Anne Ortley. She definitely predicts some stuff and
She's
is
amazing.
usually right.
She has some incredible skills, and you can tell she studied for a long time.
Yeah. I have thought about taking a few of her classes. She's very good.
Yeah.
Now that I know she's not a TERF. Um, okay. So, all right. So this starts on July the 3rd.
With a full moon. Drum roll, please. So when the moon is exactly opposite the sun, obviously, and it'll be at 11 degrees. When it goes 11 degrees, it'll be a full moon perfected. So the sun is obviously
so like
Cancer,
early morning, Monday morning.
Sun, yeah, yeah, probably depending on where you live, really. And we are starting off the week, and it goes for the entire week with this really, I find it interesting, a yod that just keeps going and going and going, because the base of it is Neptune and Pluto, which are not going anywhere. And all of the degrees in the yod are between 27 degrees and 29 degrees. So the point of the yod will start with Pallas Athena on Monday, and then it'll start to add Mars into the mix on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then the moon gets involved, because I told you the base of the yod is Neptune and Pluto. So on Tuesday, Pluto conjuncts the moon conjuncts Pluto, I should say. And then by the end of the week, the moon will conjunct Neptune. So this yod just goes and goes and goes and goes and goes.
Well, let's break it down one at a time, because it sounds like on Monday it's just going to be Pluto, Neptune, and Pallas Athena, eh? And then Mars is right next to Pallas Athena, is conjunct. And that
we know there's a party going on
in Leo. But you know what's hilarious about that is, like, Mars is the god of war, and Pallas Athena is like Xena warrior princess. Like, she's gonna fuck you up, right? Like,
they call her the dark moon Lilith, and so
well, that's Lilith, but the Pallas Athena, I think, is just she's the strategic one.
Yeah. Pallas Athena is very strategic.
Yeah, Lilith took a independent walk.
Yeah, Lilith finally left that trio in Leo.
Yeah, leave it to Lilith.
Leo, but they're about to leave.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that party in Mars and Pallas Athena and Venus, yeah, it's just been.
I just think it's interesting because they're kind of polar opposites a little bit. Pallas Athena is very much, fighting for nobility, especially in Leo. But she's also sort of very strong and trying to harvest her wisdom and things like that. And Mars isn't usually really like that. Mars is more like, just smack them, like, think Toxic Men, like, that's Mars. Impulsive, and not strategic at all, and just kind of like wham, and so the two of them are kind of opposite, yet they're on top of each other right now. So that's a lot of at least, if nothing else, a lot of aggression, and a lot of fiery energy, because they're both in Leo. Thank goodness Venus is trying to follow them up here soon, later in the week. But connected to Neptune and Pluto, Pluto is a little bit of a higher vibration than Mars. So, like, Pluto makes me think about change and transformation. It's about power and control. It also holds energies of death and rebirth. So it's a little bit more intense than Mars. And Mars tends to be quick and fast, and Pluto's usually kind of on the slower side, slow, calculated, and Neptune,
Is
you know,
retrograde.
right. And both of them are
So
in Neptune.
reflective.
Pluto and Neptune are in retrograde, so they're kind of reflecting back to us these traits, right? Power, control, death, rebirth. So what I'm thinking, Bright Hawk, is actually like action, especially related to spiritual awakenings. Because as we talked about Neptune last week, because Neptune went retrograde last week, Neptune is, it's about belief systems, it's about spirituality, it's about psychic awareness, it's about awakening, that sort of the unknown, the underwater. I thought it was interesting that as Neptune's going backwards, we have all kinds of problems in the waters, people under illusions in the waters, not just the submarine guys, but the refugees. I feel like they're under all kinds of dreams and hopes and visions. That to be a refugee, that's what that requires to be, really. And so all of the stuff happening in water in general, with Neptune going retrograde. So if you kind of think about that energy, and it's all headed towards action, strategy, and aggression, and sort of pushing towards that. And I've already seen people fighting over the guys in the submarine, and refugees are leaving, usually running from war anyway, and so it's already happening. It's already there. So, but I think that yacht is going to bring it more into a point. It's going to make it really obvious. So, yeah. And so the moon is where it's a few degrees from Pluto.
Right. It's opposite Mercury, because Mercury and the Sun are still hanging out. So you have a Mercury opposition. And of course, we should talk about for a second, Capricorn, when the moon is in Capricorn, and it's a full moon in Capricorn. So it's the fullness. It's the, whatever your intentions were set at the new moon. This is the fullness of the full moon. And when the full moon, when the moon is in Capricorn, the moon is emotional. Capricorn is the most unemotional sign in the zodiac. So you have the emotional depth of the moon meets unemotional Capricorn. So Capricorn is determined. Capricorn moon is determined, responsible, disciplined, good in business, patient, committed. They can be potentially rigid, pessimistic, opinionated, and materialistic. They may just not understand when somebody's leading with their heart and passionate and have a different set of values. Theirs can be very cool, very calculated. So, so the other thing that's happening is the moon has a number of trines with Chiron, Uranus, Jupiter, and Saturn. And so those are all blessings, easy flowing energy. We call the trines the blessed energy, the flow energy. Sometimes they get taken for granted, but that's awfully good flow with the big three of Uranus, Jupiter, and Saturn. So, and of course, Chiron's right there in the mix too. So,
well, and I was looking at, the Mars and Venus up there in Leo, and even Pallas Athena, really. Not so much, but definitely Venus and Mars are definitely squaring Uranus, which of course is that energy of like, wham, right? That's lightning strike. It could be a conflict because Mars is involved and Venus is involved. It could have something also to do with the gender revolution, because you got masculine and feminine right? And that's essentially where people are having a problem. People are sort of fighting amongst each other because of that, and or that people want to either separate it, or some people want to go, why does it matter? And with Uranus being the queer planet, it sort of adds the conservative, because Uranus right now is in Taurus. Um, it, I think it's what's creating a lot of that conservative anti-transphobia energy. And because that's really where it's coming from, right? Okay, they don't want things to change. Uranus is too out there. Why are we doing this? We don't need to change this. And a whole bunch of people are saying, yeah, we do. And so, and in my opinion, I've mentioned this once before. In my experience of looking at queer charts, when Mars and Venus are conjunct, when they're on top of each other in your chart, this person, or in opposition, so they're completely on the other side of the chart from each other, this person will challenge gender roles, even if they're not. They could be fully transgender, they could be cross-dressing, they could be a drag performer, or they could just simply be a more butch person that identifies as a cis woman, or a more effeminate person that identifies as a cis male. And so, but in my opinion, always they at least challenge the gender binary. Like these are one of the ways that I find queerness in the chart. And with, if Uranus is also involved somehow, then I start going, oh, this person is kind of queer. And and typically I'm right, or they're at least a challenge, or they're like, I don't know why people always say that I'm a man. And I'm like, yeah, and I could clearly see how people would project masculinity onto a person that is clearly born and believes and feels that they're a woman. So and Saturn, that's kind of like the big thing early this week, and I think this actually goes on for through most of the week. And with the yod being part of it, because the yod is sort of pointing to that, the beginning of that square.
Very much so. And you see the moon is about to come up and join Pluto.
Yeah, so I feel like
in Aquarius,
something's going to happen. I don't know what, but something's going to happen. And it's going to might have something to do with the gender revolution, and it may definitely have something probably to do with the conservatives. And I just feel like it's going to be sudden and big. It could even involve water, because Neptune is now in retrograde. And of course, Neptune in retrograde, some people have talked about all kinds of things about, like, like floods and those kinds of things.
Well, I wonder if it's possible that there's a grand trine in air, and air is about thinking. It's about maybe a change in thinking. So the grand trine includes Ceres and Vesta. Ceres is manifestation, mother. Vesta is loyalty.
It's about your spiritual dedication.
Spiritual dedication. Okay, so Ceres is in Libra, Vesta is in Gemini, and the moon and Pluto are in Aquarius. So a grand trine in air. And we had a couple of grand trines last week too. So I found that kind of interesting.
Well, hopefully, that's on the 4th, right?
That's on the 4th. Are we on the 4th?
Not yet, not quite yet.
Pushed it.
The other thing that happens, that's okay, this is also happening on the 4th, is Saturn is trining the Sun and Juno. So that's actually quite important, because Saturn's a pretty influential planet. It's big enough that it will happen for most of us.
Okay.
And it's trining the Sun, which of course is one of the biggest, right? And then Juno, which is about commitment. So a trine is usually a blessing or something that comes easy. So there could be some changes. There was an announcement, I believe today or yesterday, the U.S. Supreme Court put down Tennessee, I think it was Tennessee's anti-transgender law. And then I think there was also something about Florida. Have you heard anything like that in the news, LaCrosse, in the last few days?
I haven't like heard it from the news, but I have heard about it, like and with people talking about it, but I have heard about it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So I think they're having a hard time. It's the conservatives and the progressive people are, our progressive, more progressive, smarter people are going, no, knock it off.
yeah.
I should hope so.
We all know where I stand, but that's okay. I don't care. Yeah, and I think you're right, Fred Hawk, with that grand trine. So, with the
Pluto and the moon.
with Pluto and the moon conjunct like that, I just am like, so if you're a medium or anything like that, and you can work on the 4th of July, please do so, because you'll probably be pretty good at it. You'll probably bring a lot of intuition. You'll probably hit a lot of things right on. If you need to do any work, if you're looking for a medium reading or you're trying to do some work about someone that's passed on, that's a good day from the 4th. Around the 4th is actually a good day because the moon is going to be on top of Pluto. So it's going to ask you to do emotional work around death. It's going to actually ask you to do that. And then, of course, please tie in your spirituality and self-nurturing. So it's going to come real easy. So someone getting a medium reading or doing some sort of work about death on the 4th of July could be really good. Or change, major change, major transition, spiritual awakenings, things like that. And now Pluto is squaring the nodes on this day. So it just means that there could be some sort of challenge while the moon's there visiting. So you might have to, come to an understanding about where you've come from and where you're going, because the nodes are about your past lives and and where you came from. So like your childhood and your influence as a young person and where you're going. So whatever you're doing on the 4th of July, I'm just going to say, pay attention because something's pushing you to change. And if you can embrace that change, it would be a blessing for you. Especially because the moon is there, right? So it's going to be an emotional change. And the nodes really are pretty powerful because they're coming up and they're about to change signs here soon enough. I think it's next week. And when they change signs, you'll know it. But they've been in Taurus and Scorpio for quite some time. So if there's some things that you've been working on for a while, some things you've been trying to change, some things that have Scorpio, Taurus elements to them. Scorpio is about transition and change. Taurus is about money, luxury, comfort, and I think it rules conservative views. So Pluto's going to square that energy. And Ceres, now then everything else other than Lilith is retrograde, and it's going to come into direct opposition with Pluto and the moon, which we just talked about it. So there might be some independence. I could totally see someone struggling with like Christian perspective, Christian views. Here you are with your family. Your family's telling you should never get a medium reading because that's the devil's way or some cuckoo-ness like that. And you want to be independent. You want to be on your own. You want to be yourself. You want to be who you're going to be. So, if those kinds of things are happening, and considering that it's the 4th of July, I'm like,
that's what I'm thinking.
Going home, having a barbecue with their family or something like that, and being like, shut up. Like,
choose wisely.
You know that's happening. I don't do that stuff anymore. But a lot of people do. I don't bother. Um, and but the nice thing is Lilith is sextiling Vesta and Ceres. So that tells you right there. That tells you that your independence will take you to a spiritual dedication and self-fulfillment and self-nurturing. So that's really where you want to be engaged on the 4th. So do you have
Do what
anything?
feels good and
Yeah.
have what feels fun. Right?
And that yod's still going to be going
It's going to
on.
be going on all
Right.
week.
With Pluto and the moon.
Yeah.
And now the moon is on Pluto. So it's going to make transitioning or changing pretty intense. Okay.
Yeah. And with Mars coming into 26, now it's part of the orb of Pallas and Mars at the point.
Right. So now Mars is becoming the point.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So everything at 26, 27, and 29 is the orb for that. And it just keeps going. So we are now on the 5th, right?
Yep.
So by the way, I don't know if I said on the 4th and the 5th, the moon is in Aquarius. And Aquarius the moon likes being in Aquarius. It's because Aquarius is the humanitarian, and so the moon shines brightly there. Aquarius moons are sensitive and perceptive. They can be very idealistic, creative, tolerant, rational, humanitarian. I mentioned that one. On the challenging side of Aquarian moon, Aquarius has an unpredictability that makes them feel dangerous because you don't know what's going to happen with them. They can sometimes be aloof or contrarians. They can have a fixed opinion. They're a fixed sign. So sometimes when they've made up their mind, that's it. And then they can sometimes be kind of tactless about how they share that opinion or why they think it is what it is. So the plus side is it's logic with humanitarian. The Aquarius moon on the 5th becomes void. And it's, as you can see, it's still opposing Lilith. And it's also opposing Venus. It's a thin orb of opposing Venus. And it's squaring Jupiter and Taurus and Uranus. And that yod is still going. But the moon is kind of moving. Now it's moving towards Neptune, and it'll join the yod again when it gets to Neptune.
Yeah, after it passes by Saturn, eh? But the Lilith is squaring the nodes still, and it's in opposition to Pluto, which is also squaring the nodes. And that's kind of that big red square you see there. Kind of with one line. Yeah.
Hard to miss.
And Lilith is about independence. It's also about sexuality. It is it does represent female sexuality, in particular feminist sexuality, as well as like independence. And it's not Lilith is not a small energy. It's very powerful in your chart. So you want to pay attention to Lilith. She's very much where your independence streak is. And you tend to do things on your own, like you have your own ideas about things. And since it's in Leo, it's going to make you think that those ways of doing things are the noble way. Okay. Which you could be right. They could be. It's not necessarily wrong, but it's in opposition to Pluto over there in Capricorn, which is actually a little bit more conservative and reserved. So it makes me think about progressive versus conservative. And squaring the nodes, which is where we came from and where we're going. So it's more of that energy, but it's going to continue on like pretty much from the 4th on for the rest of the week, mostly for several more days. So, if you went on mini vacation or something with your family, I'm sorry. Especially if your family is conservative.
Hopefully you're having a great time.
Hopefully it will go well.
Because being in motion is a good thing, because that finger of God is pointing towards Mars, and being in motion seems like it's actually, not a bad thing.
Hopefully, yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure. But I have to say, when we talk about the yods and the finger of God, if you haven't been with us before, that is very fated energy. There's not a lot you can do about it. And remember, it's affecting all of us. So when there's that tug that feels like you're move in that direction, literally there's a finger pointing it out,
It must be that you decided to do 4th of July without your conservative family this time.
Yeah. So there's that, you'll have an instinct about something and just follow your instincts, because it's fated energy. There's not a lot you can do about it. So follow follow what feels right for you, is I guess what I would say. And pay attention to what you're thinking, because we go from trines on 4th of July to squares, which means, what do you want? What are you going to do? You got to take action. You got to
What are you going to do about it?
Because we have a lot of squares on the 5th. We have Moon square Jupiter, Moon square Uranus, the square with the nodes, a lot of squares. And so squares can create action, can create a choice that makes you go, yes, I got to do this. But it can be a challenge too. So, yeah, the difference between the 4th and the 5th feels like the 4th has more flow in it, and the 5th has a little more get it done, figure it out,
take action, do what you're gonna do.
Yeah. Because then it's the moon conjunct Saturn, and it's still opposing Lilith, Venus, Mars.
What does moon get to Saturn? Here we are.
Yeah.
Moon is in Saturn by the time we get to the 6th.
Yeah.
And we start to get a lot of opposition.
Yeah. And then it's in Pisces, obviously. And the moon in Pisces, the moon loves to be in Pisces. Deep emotional moon meets watery Pisces. And so Pisces obviously is a water sign. It's emotional. It's all about how you feel. And Saturn is in there with going retrograde, it's started retrograde.
It's been retrograde for a while. Yeah.
And so, yeah.
So Saturn in Pisces is about rebuilding our structures, especially those that have sort of, like, when you think about it, think about the way water washes away sand, like structures. And so, that's Saturn. Okay. And Saturn, and sometimes water can also build a structure, right? But right now with Neptune in retrograde, it's probably between Neptune and Saturn in retrograde in Pisces at the same time. And with these aspects, it's probably going to take something down. So
there's some big red lines in there.
So that happens. But we have to take it down in order to rebuild. And so that's what I constantly remind people is, in order for us to rebuild, we have to take something down. And some things need to fall down. And so it might have something to do with water type of fall down. And that's okay. We need things to kind of fall apart. It reminds me of that book, When Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe. It's a book about African culture being ripped apart by the Christian people trying to change them. And the main thing that you learn in that story is that it's not always there's not one way to do things. There's many ways to do things. And you can still hold on to the important parts of things that you need to hold on to, because the African culture that tribe ends up holding on to some things that's pretty important to them. And so, but you can see here that the moon is in opposition to Mars, and Saturn is also conjunct them. So, they're both kind of in opposition, and they're in conjunct Lilith. Pluto is in opposition to Lilith still with that square going on. We don't quite have a grand cross that we had a bit ago, but I would say that it's pretty intense energy.
Yeah.
Because Mars,
Thursday,
and after last week having a pretty quiet week, and now this week, last week was a little bit more positive and uplifting and inspiring, and this week is going to be a little bit more challenging. And with Neptune's retrograde, and Neptune's really asking for us to change our beliefs, to challenge fake news, apparently I was listening to Christopher Renstrom. Fake news pretty much came in the last time Neptune went retrograde. That's when fake news became a thing. And he talked about some other things that happened around Neptune retrograde. So I'm just saying that. And one of the things that he did say that I thought was pretty interesting, although I disagree with his ideas about spiritualism and mediumship, I did think that what was interesting was he was saying that just because something appears to be an illusion doesn't mean it is. And I agree. I agree with that. So, sometimes people are found to be doing fake things like what was her name in the 80s, Cleo or whatever her name was.
Yeah.
Remember that? Okay, so those are proven, people ripping people off for psychic stuff. But a lot of times, a lot of psychics are sincere, and we're not trying to rip anyone off. We're not, we're mostly just trying to get paid for, our intuition and our advice. And, there's no weirdness going on there. So, so in conjuncts and oppositions, which is what you see there with all those red lines, that creates, now I see that yod more clearly. It creates an energy of like push and pull opposition, right? Which very much feels like the conservatives and the progressives, very much feels like a lot of the stuff we've been having in our government, and all over the world, really, including like the Ukrainian war and stuff like that. It's that pulling two different directions where some people believe A and some people believe Z, and that's it. They're on opposite ends, and I don't know how to get them into the middle somewhere. I just don't know, but somehow we'll figure it out. I trust in the universe to lead us that way. But that's pretty much what's going on there.
Yeah. So, thank you for listening to this podcast, because this is part of what hopefully helps you ride your week. Wednesday and Thursday are going to be a little more intense, but as we know, every day changes. And when we get to Friday, thank goodness, it starts to become trines again. See all those blue lines? Those are all blessings. But the sun and the moon are trining. Mwah! And the Mercury's right there. So Mercury's trining the moon. It's a sextile with Jupiter. It's a sextile with Uranus. And the moon becomes less intense because it'll be void in Pisces, and then very soon it'll be going into Aries, but that's on the next day.
Yeah, I just want to say for some people out there, I've had a couple of people ask me, I'm a Pisces. What does Saturn and Neptune in retrograde in Pisces mean? If I'm a Pisces, and I'm like, do you have any other planets in Pisces? So check out your Pisces area of your chart, because I assure you that you are being affected by this. Everyone is being affected by Saturn and Pisces retrograde. Everyone is being affected by Neptune. But if you have the sun, and then the moon's going to visit it too, if you have the sun there, the moon there, or any other planets in Pisces, so you're like, well, I'm a Pisces sun, but I don't know the rest of my chart. You might want to just take a look, go to astro.com, put your birthday in there. It will give you the chart. Find Pisces. That's that blue symbol that is kind of like this. And it's a dark blue symbol here on my right hand side. That's around the sixth and seventh house, and it's Pisces is a very interesting energy, and it's easy to become illusioned or disillusioned. So there's a lot about what you don't see, and Pisces right now is really intense. So if you have Pisces planets, yes, you are affected. If you have Leo placements, it's going to be really intense for you right now because you got Mars and Venus there. And those two, Venus is about love and beauty. It's complete. It's really more about love and beauty and beautiful things and even physical, like physical things that you own, and Mars is kind of the opposite of that, where he's fiery and a little bit more compulsive and aggressive, and so but there could be some aggressive love. Okay. That could definitely happen. Hopefully not in a bad way. Hopefully someone just comes on to you that you really wanted anyway. Um, and then of course Cancer's also got a lot going on. So if you have any strong placements in those three signs, yeah, it's intense right now. The sun's in Cancer, but so is Juno, Mercury, and Lilith. Lilith moves back into Cancer on this day, on Friday, but she's moving backwards. And I think in Cancer, Lilith becomes a little bit more hidden, a little bit softer. But it's still pushing for you to look at your own personal independence and what kinds of, especially with Neptune, with the dance with Neptune, it's trining Neptune on this day. So it's just going to ask you to look at your belief systems, your spirituality. How do you maybe you need to be a little different than other people. Maybe most people believe these things, but you believe this thing. And you know what? I'm just going to say sometimes people are like, well, I used to always believe, and they have what they see as an unusual belief. And I used to have that for a really long time about like spirits and about the other side and stuff like that. And when I started sharing my beliefs in the medium group, in a medium group that I run, I was just floored. I was flabbergasted at how many people were inspired by my so-called weird belief. So if you have some weird or some unusual beliefs, just recognize that you might be being called. Spirit might be giving you those beliefs, especially if they're good for you and others, because the beliefs that I have about the other side are really good for people. So I do want to say that that's definitely happening all this month, especially while Neptune goes backwards, but while it's trining Lilith, it's going to ask you, and Mercury, it's going to ask just to bring forth those sort of, weird things, or maybe you just need to speak your beliefs. I do believe in the other side. So, and not everybody believes that there's something beyond death and afterlife. So,
well, and I wonder if your beliefs might change this week because you have Neptune and Pluto with the moon dancing between them all week in that yod. And Neptune is about your dreams and Pluto is about transformation, pointing at Mars. So maybe through, action, you'll transform some of how you think about some things.
Yeah.
You have that grand trine in air, how you think. And then, as we continue, the Neptune side of what are your dreams now? Now, maybe some things that you might need to modify the dreams that you thought you wanted or thought you had.
Yeah, especially anything to do with spirituality. Yeah. Neptune and Pisces both rule spirituality. So they're kind of making you look inward, and Pluto is transformational and can be quite spiritual.
Right.
It can also be about power and control. So, you know, be aware of how things are going. And as Lilith conjuncts Mercury, yeah, well, the sun is at 16, so, but they're in Cancer, and I thought that that was important because Lilith is still trining Neptune, but Lilith conjuncting Mercury is very much about messages, about being who you are, being authentic, being strong, authentically confident, being yourself, speaking up for yourself, speaking up for, hey, you know what, I do believe this, and that's okay. And so don't be afraid to speak up for yourself. That's pretty much what that energy is about on Saturday.
Yeah.
So over the weekend, if you get involved in something, and now you can see that yod really strongly.
Yeah.
It comes into a perfect yod right there. That's its perfection, which is here on Saturday. And you can see that two red lines
28,
pointing to Venus, Venus and Mars mostly, and Pallas Athena, who's still part of that dance, with Neptune over there on the right and Pluto, and they're just pointing right at that action. Maybe there's some action that needs to happen around, you know, your gender expression, or some sort of other action, or maybe you need to speak about some love. Maybe you need to share your dreams with your love, because I can totally see that for established relationships.
It's a great weekend to have those conversations because the moon is trining Mercury.
Yeah, especially when you're like, hey, honey, do you want to buy that house in, right? Okay. Or, hey, honey, I'd really, you know, so for people that are already in a relationship, I like to give you a little insight too. It's not just about fresh and new love. You could fall in love with your partner. You could recognize that you have similar beliefs, or something like that. It could really bring some passion to your relationship, and it could really bring some welcome change, maybe especially if you've been like working on your relationship or something like that.
Although I have to say the moon is in Aries, and moon in Aries is usually a nervous temperament.
Well, that's okay because it's in Pisces for a little while and then it moves out.
Yeah, exactly.
So maybe Saturday night could be a little nervous energy, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes nervous energy is good, especially for sexuality. So, you know, you can make love with your partner,
because then the moon hits Chiron, and
yeah, and the North Node,
healing.
Yeah, bringing forth a lot of energy. And on Sunday, we're seeing more trines, with with Mars trining the North Node, which actually is really powerful because Mars trining the North Node and sextiling the South Node creates action that is very easy, that has a lot to do with you moving forward. Okay, you moving towards maybe even saying, okay, that's the way it used to be, but I'm not like that anymore. Okay, so you might still recognize where you came from or recognize the transformation you had to do. So that I thought that's like the best part about that trine. And and still Neptune is still trining Lilith and Mercury, so you could be speaking your truth about your authenticity. And so I really felt like this weekend, so the middle of the week, Tuesday through like Thursday, from the 4th of July through the rest, the middle of the week there is going to be a little intense. But by the time you get to the weekend, hopefully people will be speaking their truth and we'll be moving on in a good way.
Yeah, exactly what I would say.
Yeah.
So a little bit of a hump in the middle of the week. Yeah.
Yeah, but after last week's like trine week, all week trines, with Neptune just asking us to revisit our spirituality and revisit all expressions of our divinity, whatever that looks like for you, because it's different for everyone, and I think it should be. So how things in what kind of moon are we under, Lacrosse?
Well, it's the woodpecker. We're in the time of the woodpecker.
Woodpecker.
Yeah.
The woodpecker. I found it interesting how you were saying in the, because I was trying to figure out, like, as I'm listening, I'm like, okay, how does the woodpecker work in this?
Yeah.
But it does. It's amazing how it does. Like when you were talking about all those like the squares
Uh-huh.
and having to go back and change your thinking and how a lot of air signs and all that. And I found it interesting because the the woodpecker only goes like its favorite food is something dead, which is the dead tree. And when we look at it, we think a dead tree like it's worthless. Like, what's the point of a dead tree outside of burning it as firewood or something? But to them, it's food, it's nourishment. Their best food comes out of a dead tree. And it's literally rethinking and changing that mindset that no, it's not dead. It's just not for us, but for somebody else, it's food and it's sustenance. And it goes back to that, the whole changing of the mind.
Mhm.
When I think of air signs, because I'm an air sign, and it's always thinking, 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 like, how am I going to bring this across? How am I going to take that across? And the only way to, not that you want to change people's mind, but give them different insights and perspectives and realize it's not just a dead tree. This is not just a dead tree. And another thing with the woodpecker is its brain is completely covered with muscles to protect it.
Mm.
And when I think of that, how do we apply that? Those are all that knowledge, all the wisdom and everything we have to protect our mind, to protect our spirit, and to be able to use that to make change. Because with all the retrograde, how many times we go forward and then you end up going backwards? Oh shit, no, I think I got to rethink this. I got to rethink this. And then go back forward and then back. It's like this constant back and forth until you actually figure it out. You're like, oh, okay, yeah, definitely this way. This is the way I'm supposed to go. And that's where, like, I look at the woodpecker. It protects its head, its mind at all costs. That's that's nature's way of protecting it. And I thought it all did kind of coincide with the woodpecker.
Yeah. And I think about the woodpecker doing its work, like it's kind of doing work a lot because they're
Mm-hmm.
kind of busy birds.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I was thinking that all of this is a lot of work this week.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's really, it's really important. Um, so it's really important for us to, pay attention to what the work is, because otherwise, what ends up happening is if you ignore the work at hand, what ends up happening is at some point, spirit will push you up against the wall and you'll have to make a decision last minute. And this kind of happens like if you have like a car or some sort of like device in your house, like your furnace or something. It usually gives you a little bit of a warning. And then if you ignore that warning and you ignore the next warning and the next warning, and then eventually you have to call on a Saturday
Mm-hmm.
and you get charged twice as much, right? And then you're like, shit,
I should have
man.
just listened. Well, no, I think of that cartoon. Yeah, I don't know if you remember Woody Woodpecker.
I do.
This wouldn't have happened had Woody gone to the police. How he had the bag of money and he never turned it in,
Oh, okay.
and he just kept running with that money, and all these bad things kept happening. And they're like, nope, this wouldn't have happened had Woody gone to the police. If he would have just did it right from the door, he could have saved himself all the agony. But I guess us as humans, we can't help but have to do it over and over and over again until we get it right. You know.
Yeah, I have as I've gotten older, I've definitely gotten better at listening to like the first, maybe the
Yeah.
second warning. And if I wait past the third, I'll be worried about it. And
Yeah.
I'll be, oh, you dumbass. Don't wait, you know. So that's
I
what I'm
piss
gonna say about.
myself off. I piss myself off.
Yeah, so if there's something you're waiting to say or do, just do it now. Yeah, just do it. Do it while the energy is there to support you. To support you getting it done. That's how I feel about it. Because anytime you put it off, it just gets worse.
Mhm. Yeah, sure.
Yep. So I'm gonna pull three cards here from the Pride deck. And each one of these cards is done by a different LGBTQ artist. So let's see here. Oh, there we go. So this is the first card. And this is the Five of Wands. And the Five of Wands is very much about conflict. I think that's true in all Rider-Waite type themed cards. And it's very much about conflict. And if you take a look at this, you can see that this card is very much like, kind of looks like a protest, meets the police, meets the system, right? And that's pretty much what this is about. This is about conflict. This is about coming together. And this is a reminder of the past, of how we've been in conflict. There's a lot of conflict in the world right now. There's a lot of different kinds of conflict, but there is a lot of conflict. Not everyone, but there's enough to get most of us feeling fairly uncomfortable, at least us Libras anyway. People with strong Libra placements probably find conflict to be quite uncomfortable. And so that's pretty much, this is a reminder of the conflict we have come through and we have been part of. Most of the time, most people take at least some side, or you have to. And I know that that's definitely happened for me, and I usually resist taking a side, but I've had to take a side. And I think that that's part of, the separation of conflict. And as we go forward, this is the here and now, which is pretty much reaching for the light. I find it interesting that this is the star card. And in a lot of decks, the star card involves water. And so this, of course, is a mermaid, which is, of course, living in the water. And this person is reaching for the light, right? And so that's pretty much what the star is about. It's about reaching for the light and heading towards things that are better for us, inspiring for us. Just like when you go outside and look at the stars, right? They're inspiring for you. And it's also about doing that in an authentic way. And so that's in the here and now. It's okay to express yourself authentically. Just find the right place and the right time to do that, please. And with the water, it could be very emotional. And that's pretty much what this card is about. It's about the emotional side and the reaching for the light and embracing our light. And going forward, this is in the coming, week. This is the Ace of Cups. So this is about emotional mastery and getting spirit to help you with this. So it's interesting that we're, dealing with Neptune retrograde and working with Neptune. Ask Neptune to help you. Neptune is really about spirituality and about awakenings and spiritualism and just pushing you forward into having an open mind. And so Neptune can really open your mind, especially if you ask Neptune to maybe melt away the illusions and show you the way that's best for you. And that's really what this is about. This is about having a spiritual connection with that little fairy type creature there. But it's about emotional mastery through spiritual awakenings. And that's why I've said that Neptune retrograde, if you're having a spiritual awakening, congratulations, you're right on track. So, just remember that in the past, we've been through some conflict. There has been some conflict, but now we've moved into the light and we're starting to reach for the light. We're trying to find a way through that conflict because light leads the way almost every time. If you reach for the light, you can move through conflict in a better way. And as you're going forward, ask for spiritual guidance, ask for help from all the entities on planet Earth that could possibly support you, and even entities beyond planet Earth. Whatever serves you, you should tap into those spiritual, emotional energies of water. So don't be afraid to go down to the water and get your feet wet, and just try to tap into those things because they'll be what leads you in a good way. Okay.
Excellent.
Very good. Very good.
Cool.
Great. All right.
All right. Well, hopefully that helps everybody, and hopefully you all have a great week.
Yeah, and I hope that your holiday is blessed. I hope that you become aware of your spiritual awakenings. I just want to mention I do do spiritual coaching. So if you just need someone to talk about that, just check out my link below. I've had a lot of requests for that recently. I don't know, just like all these people going through a spiritual awakening coming out of the woodwork. um it's interesting, and I'm like, okay, I'll try to help you as best I can. Frankly, I'm going through my own awakening, and I'm
For
like,
sure.
okay, well, everyone's going through an awakening, but I've been through a few of them before. So especially if it's your first one and you're kind of like, what the, I might be able to point you in the right direction at the very least.
It's when astrology can be so helpful. If you're struggling and you get an astrology reading, suddenly you start to feel like, okay, I'm not losing my mind. This is what's going on. This is how to work. There's always something that's going to challenge, and there's always something that's going to be, hopefully, I'm being a little too generic. I don't like to do always. Most of the time, there's something that challenges, and most of the time, there's something that blesses or gifts or.
And most of the time, spiritual awakenings are not easy. They're usually
Rarely.
stressful. They're usually, you get drugged through the mud for a little while. You got to face some, emotional challenges, mental challenges, social challenges, physical challenges, or something. So there's usually some sort of challenge. You could even feel depressed, anxious. And I think if we recognize more often that people are going through spiritual awakenings, that people would not get so caught up on, oh, well, there's an imbalance in my brain and this is going to last forever and ever. Sometimes spiritual awakenings last for a long time.
And it can be reframed into a hero's journey if you embrace and harvest the lessons that are coming your way, because all of us get challenged.
Yeah, it can be a really hard challenge. So I'm just saying that spiritual awakenings sometimes they can be hard.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Wishing you all the very, very best.
Anything
you want to add, Lacrosse?
Yeah, make sure you like, share, and subscribe.
Thank you. It helps.
Yeah, please do that.
Comment, invite your friends.
Yeah.
Let us know how your week went.
Yeah.
All right, my friends.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Have a good week.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this week's Soulstrology and subscribing, liking, sharing, and reviewing. We hope you enjoy this dose of Soulstrology and encourage you to embrace the week ahead with an open mind and heart so that you may integrate the deepest of lessons from the stars. Take a moment to step outside and honor the planets, stars, and moon in the sky with your heart. Integrate the messages that resonate and leave the rest for someone else. We deeply appreciate each and every one of you. Always remember that you are a perfectly unique human with an exclusive star map of your destiny, your soul purpose, and your heart's desire. Thank you again for tuning in to Rainbow Soul.